Welcome to Transforming the Trades, the podcast where we empower you to take charge and innovate your business. Whether you're a plumber, electrician, or any other trade professional, this show is designed to give you the tools and strategies you need to succeed. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to take your business to the next level with Transforming the Trades. Hey, Andrew, thanks for joining today. We really appreciate you wanting to partake with Transforming the Trades and talk to our audience about your company, and then also about the transformation or pivot points that you're seeing from your view that is going to impact our industry, and what should our audience be aware of, and how does your company help assist with those change points?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I just want to start with that. Like you mentioned, my agency, Catalyst RVA, we do digital marketing mainly for like contractor space. We do have a couple of clients outside of that, but to kind of, I guess, address one of your big questions, there's a lot of things going on right now, specifically, especially within the whole Google ecosystem. You had the massive disruption that AI has kind of thrown into the mix over the past, I guess, year or so. You've started to see tons of changes with people developing new tools. You've started to see major changes inside of search engines. You've seen major changes with how ads are running, whether you're talking about social media or you're talking about Google. There's just a lot of things to try and keep up with. And as you know, as a small business owner, it's not always the easiest thing to juggle 15 hats. Now it feels like you have to wear 20, right?
Or whatever, 2,500, I think it's more appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't think it's 20 anymore. We've got a big hat now, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, tell me, where's RVA? Where are you located?
So my company is located specifically in Richmond, Virginia. We do work with clients across the United States. However, we are kind of like a smaller company. We're limiting the amount of clients that we take on to 15 so that we can provide that really personalized attention. But we are working out of Virginia specifically, and that's where a handful of my clients are.
So one of the things, I know that you do more than just contractors. And so one of the things that may be relevant is, what's going on with other industry related to some of these things that you just mentioned that are applicable to the trades. Because I was just listening to, I guess they call it video shorts, right? About Gemini, Google Gemini. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but that's like pretty amazing stuff. And
it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. And I'd like to, talk about that a little bit if we can. But I do.
Definitely.
I know a lot of AI is embedded into marketing, sales, etc. And I always, of course, folks talk about AI like it's a noun, and it is all encompassing,
Right.
which it is to some degree. But this is really about, in our industry or any other industry, are we AI ready? Are we ready to leverage this thing called AI from a small business owner's perspective in the space of plumbing, heating, and electrical and the trades, right? So that's really where I think we might have a good starting point to start focusing, is that, what does that mean? What does AI ready mean? And so,
sure.
I think maybe just related to this big topic of AI, you're a marketing agency. How would you tell a plumbing and heating or electrical company to be AI ready? What do you got? What do you got to know? What do you got to do? What's my prep? What's my roadmap here? Right?
And I think that that kind of looks a little bit different for every single person. There are some things that would apply industry-wide or just globally if you're looking at every industry. But I think the way that you look at, or the way that I look at the AI conversation is what level of AI, because there are AI tools and things like that have been around for a very long time.
Right.
There have been chat bots and things that people have been slowly working on, but the commercially available stuff that you're seeing now currently with a lot of the big brands and the tools, they're all at different levels of complexity and different levels of them themselves even being, commercially ready or viable products.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're looking at how do I set myself up moving forward as a small business owner, you have to identify processes that you currently have in place. And again, even businesses they're at different levels where maybe they already have an established SOP or standard operating procedure. Maybe it's in your head, maybe it's officially written down. Identifying through that whole customer journey what things are the same every single time, right? Those are things that you can start to look at leveraging AI, because AI in its current existence is not always the most predictable. If you give it a variation of inputs, it can sometimes do what's called hallucinate and go off into left field, and that's the last thing you want when you have a client on the line and you want to make sure that you're not sending that client something odd. So looking at your process and identifying areas where you can potentially use AI is definitely the first place to start. And again, these are repetitive tasks. Like things like sending out emails can already be done via automation, but you may be able to start incorporating AI from the perspective of right now ideation. So great one for people if they're not already using this, coming up with content ideas for social media. There's a number of different ways to do it, and it can be very time consuming depending on what you're doing. But ideation is great. Coming up with ideas, giving it inputs and asking it for, hey, give me some ideas on a blog post or a social media post or an Instagram reel,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And then the other thing is summarizing information. That's the one thing that you can get a very predictable result from. And that's essentially what the current language models, right? You mentioned Gemini, which used to be Google Bard. And so they got started. Same with OpenAI. If you give it a large pile of data that would traditionally take a human being a long time to go through, it can summarize that information very effectively in its current existence. So obviously, I think as time goes on, business owners are going to find more and more creative uses for leveraging AI. But from my perspective now, if you want to be able to start to future proof yourself, it's identifying your processes. And that's a completely human thing that you will have to do as a business owner to identify even where you can use AI, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
And I don't know, most of our clients, they have at least got some of their processes documented, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
have all of them documented. A lot of them, I think the ones that are, I'm going to call it, we take for granted, like answering the
Sure.
phone. I don't know how well that's
Yeah.
documented, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
so those things, to your point, understanding how you can leverage it. But I think the thing that's fascinating, and I think where we get sidetracked, is that if you listen to some of the marketing spin from Google Gemini, you might start off in this rat hole, if you will, of how you can differentiate yourself by using AI tools in your advertising, for example.
Sure.
And that is probably where I think sometimes we get spun off. We start getting ahead of ourselves instead of figuring out the fundamentals and understanding how AI can automate and assist, by the way, the humans that work in your organization, and make your humans do more human things and more valuable things, right? Um,
Exactly.
versus doing the mundane, repetitive task. How do you start using AI to leverage it so that you can organically build efficiencies in places that you don't necessarily recognize you need them or should need them, right? But I
Yep.
do think we're all shiny object people, and we're always like, wow, I can do
Yeah.
that, and what I just heard you said is stick to the fundamentals, do the basics, right?
Absolutely.
So in a marketing way, what does that mean? If I'm And in the trades, obviously, one of the big deals about trades is the Google My Business page, local services, pay per click. I mean, pay per click is, goodness gracious, is what's floated Google's boat for years. So, what is it, or is there anything that we should be thinking about in this marketing sphere and talking to our agencies about?
Sure.
So, is there anything that you would think of?
Yeah. Yeah, I think keeping a good finger on the pulse with an agency, I think a lot of times we get in this position where, as business owners, we naturally want to hold on to everything. And when we do finally agree to section off a piece and say, okay, you're responsible for this, we also just tend to, disconnect from that piece. And that's one of the challenges, from my perspective as an agency owner, is you want to maintain that relationship almost as a partnership, to where you're having regular conversations with your agency and you're saying, hey, this is the quality of lead that I'm seeing. Because as an agency owner, especially if you're working with somebody that has 15 employees, it's unavoidable that you become a number on a spreadsheet.
True.
As a small business owner. And so you want to have that conversation with them so they do know exactly what's coming in the door. And at that point, some of that data, they may be using AI to start to, analyze some of the data that you're providing or that they're gathering. They may be using AI for, like I said, any kind of creative purposes. I have tested a few tools that claim to be able to write ad copy and things like that. And I think at this point, it's a great tool, like I said, for ideation, but without the human touch, I don't know if you've probably had this experience before where you've met somebody and I don't know what it is about that person. I just don't, there's not a good vibe there. And I think that's a lot of times the same feeling people get when they read AI output.
It's like it doesn't have a personality. It's flat.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You
Yeah,
feel it.
you can feel it. Yes, I agree with you.
And so I think that's the biggest thing is, agencies are experimenting with how they can use AI. And so I think having your finger on the pulse is going to make sure that you're still continuing to get results. I think as a business owner, that's something you have to consider is, yes, these companies are going to use AI. And it's not inherently a bad thing, as long as there's a human being coming in after it to make sure that the quality of, work that you are paying for is turning into a tangible result. That being said, search engines are also going to continue to change. If you're listening to this, it's May 22nd right now, and some of you have probably started to see something called SGE rolled out. There are like AI summaries inside of some of the Google search results that you're starting to see, and they're wildly inaccurate and insane. Some of the things that they are recommending and answering questions with. And you have to understand that AI has been trained basically by scraping portions of the internet. And if you've ever been on the internet, you have a very thorough understanding that may not have been the best approach to find logical
Information.
patterns.
Yeah. Or the
and
most
information.
reliable
Yeah, exactly.
information. Yeah, the most reliable
Right.
information for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's definitely something I think you, as a business owner, you have to keep an eye on, because agencies are going to try and figure out, how can I be more efficient, which means they're going to experiment with tools, which means you're going to be the guinea pig as a business owner. So I think the most important thing is to have a conversation with the companies that are doing your marketing and keep that communication pipeline open so you understand what they're doing and then how they're mitigating the potential risks that are associated with using AI tools in that process.
Yeah. So in other words, we're at the very tippy toe of this thing, and we shouldn't let it run away with us. We need to manage ourselves, and we will eventually get there. As sophistication starts to happen and the Googles and IBMs and so on of the world are going to kind of solidify how it's going to be practical and how it becomes reliable. But we are very much at the very beginning stages of this. And the message is, Start to understand it, but be careful. Don't go falling in quicksand so you can't get out. Don't think that it's the answer to everything. I'll give you a good example. I think you know that we have an accounting division. And I saw a post on Facebook where somebody had posted, "Hey, you can upload your profit and loss statements and it's going to give you a summary of what you're doing." It's like, no, 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 no,
Right.
no. There's not a cheater's way here, right? We're just not there yet. It's not. It can see the numbers and it can say 1 + 1 is 2 or 1 - 1 is 0, but don't rely on an AI engine trying to tell you what your business performance is. Not at this point. It doesn't have enough knowledge. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So what's new then in 2024 that you're working on with your clients? What is new that you're working on with your clients, and what's coming maybe in 2025? Let's be a little bit more short term.
Sure. Yeah. So I think in the short term, AI tools are evolving very, very quickly. One of the things that I see that is particularly interesting is forever people have used what are called stock images, right? You can sign up for any kind of website and you go to your competitor's website, they're using the same exact images because you didn't want to pay for a photographer. And so AI imagery is something that has been very interesting, and certain niches and certain verticals have very, very high quality image generations that are now coming out of some of these tools. There's a number of them. And the thing that you also have to keep in mind is that there's the stuff that is commercially available, and then there's the stuff where if you do fall down the rabbit hole and you decide, hey, I want to turn this into my thing, there are people out there that can create, even currently, uh, actual images that, from a photographer background, I don't know if you can see in my background here, it's all lenses and
No, I
cameras and
can't.
stuff, but
But anyways,
um,
I'll go with it.
it's uh, it's images that would pass for real,
Wow.
and that's something that's, one, scary, and two, very, very impressive. So I think that's going to open up a lot of doors for people to be much more effective with creating visuals that are both eye catching, which is very, very important now, especially if you're using social media or if you're running ads with any kind of visuals. That's one of the most important things, is stopping the scroll and breaking through the noise that people have. So I think in the next year or two, the generations that are coming out of AI tools from a content perspective, like a written content perspective, are probably not going to be useful for much more outside of ideation, or, like you said, kind of like a summarization, but maybe not from the financials
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
content
Yeah.
perspective. So I think those are probably not going to get to the point where they're tip top and ready for use. But images, I absolutely see that as being a huge area to explore, because hiring a photographer, again, that's kind of my background, it can be very expensive if you want to pay for somebody to do something right. Um, and the reality is today, if you are trying to wear all of those hats and create social media content, that's a whole other animal for you to try and, chase down.
Sure.
So short term that, and I think AI is starting to trickle into a lot of tools as companies are figuring out, how can I use this effectively? And I think those are things that you should see and start to notice and even play with. I mean, think critically as you're exploring the tools and seeing, like, hey, is this actually giving me something tangible and useful? But people are, if everyone is researching this and everyone is testing and trying new things, people are going to make connections and produce things that are useful and helpful in your general day to day. You just have to be open to testing them, but, like you said, not falling into the
Yeah,
rabbit hole,
into the
so to
rabbit
speak.
hole. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I've seen definitely. I'm seeing where AI is beneficial in, let's call it, workflows, if you will,
Yeah.
workflows, and generating what's going to be the best next message to reply with, and or what's going to be the best next step to take based on your AI model. But I'm real cautious about what's going to happen in the short term and how do you use it. One of the things that I don't want to have happen, and I don't believe it will, because I think there's enough interest in this and there's enough clout behind it, is that don't try it and it fails and think that it's not worth your time. My advice is
Right.
keep trying. You may have just tried it for the wrong thing, or you may have not understood how it could help you, and your expectations and the end results were out of alignment. So this is all about really taking small things and starting with small things and then going, yep, that worked. Yes, that worked, right? Versus trying to boil the ocean, if you will. And I believe that is definitely the marketing message as well. I would think. Don't throw pay-per-click out just because AI is here, right? Figure out how
Right.
AI is going to impact pay-per-click and be knowledgeable about it, and stay in touch with your marketing agency to have them help you understand the impact of AI.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think even this is just one example, but the little search things that we were talking about where they're giving an AI summary of some type of result that you're searching in Google now, they may pivot and try and create some type of advertisement method for that specifically. I think that's what keeping your finger on the pulse is going to do for you as a business owner. Is they're still rolling local service ads out for certain locations, certain niches, certain industries. They're adding categories. And if you're the first person in that, you can pick up a massive amount of the market share for your area. So I think being first to experiment with things is a good thing. And again, keeping in mind your marketing budget, you typically don't want to dump that into one area.
Absolutely.
You kind of you want to spread so that you make sure that, if this method is slowly starting to trail off, which it will, any kind of paid advertising that you do is always going to slowly become more effective, just like organic. But also going back to basics and remembering you're a business owner, and referrals, if you set things up properly and you have systems in place, referrals should always offset the increasing cost of running any kind of marketing.
That's interesting.
So
Yes.
not forgetting the basics. My dad runs a handyman business and he stays busy. He's 4 or 5 months out and it's all referrals. He has no marketing. It's just him.
Right. Right.
But at the
He
same
also has
time,
low capacity, so that's all good. Right. Yeah.
yeah. So you have to balance every method and not put the cart before the horse just because something is shiny, like you mentioned earlier.
Well, listen, Andrew, I've enjoyed this conversation very much. It's always inspiring to me to talk to other experts in different fields that service this industry, and we need each other to complete the cycle. And so definitely marketing is a big investment from all of the clients in the trades. So they're always interested in learning more about marketing and what's happening and how's that going to change primarily their spend, not to lie to you. And I don't blame them, because it's a big spend in this business.
No, business
Yeah,
is business.
this is business. And so let's tell the audience where you're at, give them your contact information. How can they get a hold of you if they want to learn more about Catalyst?
Absolutely. So Catalyst RVA, we work out of Virginia mainly. Most of our focus is on contractors like we talked about, but we do work with a handful of people outside of that. You can find me on any kind of social media, whatever your favorite social media platform is, at Catalyst RVA. And if you want to reach me by email, it's Andrew at Catalyst RVA.
Thanks, Andrew. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Transforming the Trades. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights and tips for your trade business. If you found this podcast helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to check out our website where you can find additional resources and information to help you grow your business. Until next time, keep innovating and take charge of your success.